The second is about feeling calm. So calm in this case, we think about as ease, peace, and flow. Ease is the ability to create a kind of flow, in the capacity to create a flow, in other words, a functioning in your life that is as free of resistance as possible, as free of blocks as possible, and that you have a sense that you can kind of move through your day, move through your tasks, and function in a way that is relatively effective and efficient for you. Peace is really about a sense of tranquility. It's that moment when you exhale. It's that moment when you can close your eyes and feel an even breath. It's the ability to be able to rest. And there are many other elements of it. So when we think about having broken those down, how can we feel more calm, more ease during this time? One of the things to understand is this idea of the fact that none of us want to suffer. Nobody wants to suffer, right? We're afraid of suffering itself. And oftentimes the thought of suffering is something that causes us more stress to begin with. If you've ever struggled with anxiety or insomnia, you'll see that oftentimes our fear of being anxious, our fear of having insomnia is what actually makes it worse. So one of the things to understand is that suffering ends, and we are in a situation that is especially difficult. That doesn't mean that we should just accept all the suffering and all the inconvenience and all the discomfort that's coming, but being able to at least peacefully say, yes, this is part and parcel of what we're going through right now. It's okay. Also helps manage our expectations and helps us have a stronger, if I can say, resistance or anti-fragility to the discomforts of the situation. There's a couple of other things you can do, right? One we say is, and for those of you that are particularly good at being anxious, as I am, don't anticipate worries. You know, if you're living all the time in the future and imagining things, you're, as they say, you're suffering for what might never happen. And as much as we are hearing news that are affecting us and that are giving us some sort of provisions for how long this might last and how this might go, the truth is nobody knows. And oftentimes when we're in situations, even situations that we're afraid will happen, as we're going through them, we're often more effective and not suffering as much as perhaps we had imagined. And so there's a couple of things to consider. And there's a really wonderful woman by the name of Stephanie Bennet Vogt. If you haven't gotten to know Daily Om, it's a really great little platform that has, not so little, I mean, but it has a lot of simple courses by quite famous practitioners. And one of them is this woman, Stephanie Bennet Vogt, who has this course about unblocking emotions, and another one about unblocking spaces. And she talks about 5 S's, which I think are really quite helpful. So I'm going to go through them very briefly. These are 5 S's that help you build calm. So one is slowing down. That means that instead of rushing, instead of pushing, instead of climbing too fast, too high, it's just taking your time. Particularly moments when things are stressful and when there's a lot of change, one of our tendencies is to start rushing about to adjust. And in fact, this is something that can cause a lot more strain, particularly as we mentioned before, because we're still using up so many of these emotional credits just to even deal with the transition itself. And so the idea of just slow down, take your time a little bit more, especially when you start your day, is key. Some of you may have heard me say that there's been, a lot of research shown that if you start your day off rushing, you increase your levels of cortisol and testosterone, your stress hormones, immediately. And then it becomes much more difficult to lower them over the course of the day. In contrast, if you actually start off your day, your mornings, with more quiet, with more stillness, it doesn't have to be a lot, just a little bit for yourself, slowing down, you actually stabilize those hormones, and it becomes that much more difficult for stress hormones to, and stresses to spike over the course of the day. So that's just, I think, a helpful thing to note. The second S is simplifying it, simplifying in general, which means, in times like this, perhaps let's say that a few weeks ago, you were able to handle an X number of things, of priorities. But right now, one of the best things we can do for ourselves is really ask, what is truly, truly the most important under these new circumstances? For me personally, for me professionally. right? That means that for a lot of us, we're shifting priorities at work. We're dropping entire projects, starting new ones, starting new initiatives. This one was one for us, for example. For health, for well-being, maybe you were going to the gym X number of times, and now you're adjusting that by doing a different kind of routine for yourself that's a little bit easier. Give yourself a little bit of a break when it comes to finding some comfort, either as in a nice cup of tea and some food. But the idea is just understanding to find the priorities that are key right now and let everything else go, which comes down to the next one. This is really about surrendering, and that's one of the 3 S's. Surrendering is not about giving up, and it's not about giving in. It's literally about stepping back so you can step up, as Stephanie says very nicely. The idea that sometimes you just have to let go and make peace with the idea of what are the things that I can influence, what are the things that I can control, and what are the things that I cannot. And so really understanding that if this is beyond my control, however much it may be making me anxious, learning to just let that go for the moment and really focus your energy where you can make a difference for yourself, for your loved ones, for your team, your company, etc. The 4th is sensing. And this is also a bit of mindfulness here, that sensing is particularly powerful when you are in a moment of stress. So one of the things to do is simply tune in to your 5 senses. So 5 senses, and let's say the 6th being, your inner knowledge. And the idea here is, something as simple as you're becoming overwhelmed, or you're saturated, or you're stressed, or you're tired, and just stopping for a second, looking around you, seeing what you see, hearing what you hear. What do you smell, right? What's around you? Are there birds outside your window? Really sort of anchoring yourself into the moment and zooming out from the stress that's around you can be particularly powerful. And the last one, and these 5, is self-care. And self-care is not just sort of the spa treatment. My husband and I were talking about this weekend, how we said, we're going to, as much as we really care about self-care in general, we said this weekend we're going to make it extra special, right? And that just means, is that, a nice dinner? Is that really taking time out for yourself? Is that taking individual solitude for yourself if you need it, and insisting on that? Is that having quality couple time? Whatever that is that enjoying a shower for longer than usual and letting yourself feel hot water and enjoy the moment, right? So it pretty much is anything and everything that makes you feel better and in a healthier way. And so this is where it comes back to the original thing that we said. It's all about you knowing yourself best. And if you don't know, then try it. Just test it. And one of the biggest questions is what would make me feel better this moment? What will make sense for me